Saturday morning, and I'm meeting up with a couple of buddies. We're headed north. Now, because of the weather, which has pretty much been for a month now, we are going to possibly change routes today, but basically the route that we're planning on is NC 500 West Coast. So yeah, just to catch up with the lads tonight, couple of beers, away from home. Hopefully the weather improve. It looks slightly better in the forecast than it has all week, so I'm hoping, although I've got the old waterproofs on, that things are going to improve as we go. So let's get on it. Scratch that. Flat battery. This bike was literally running yesterday. And dumping charge, don't know how, don't know why, and it would pick today. So, Ducati.
Well, as you saw, things don't always work out, sometimes for a reason. And it turns out that this time the reason was so that I could make a video about the Ducati being 1 year old. By coincidence, when I got home from this trip, I had a message via YouTube in the comment section, somebody asking if I was going to be putting out any Street Fighter videos anytime soon. And it made me realise it has been quite a while. And then, once I started thinking about it, I thought, well, literally, the bike is 1 year old. Why haven't I done one of those obligatory 1 year on bike videos that everyone seems to do? And as well as that, I had all of this footage. I had no reason to film it. I just took the cameras along and occasionally I'd switch it on, and I thought, well, we'll get some B-roll for the end of the year. So what the heck, let's make the best of a bad start and see what we come up with here. So I reckon what we'll do is we'll talk through how that first year's ownership has gone for me, and then we'll get back to the trip and how the Ducati fared on the bumpy roads up north. Some of you may have seen the Ducati Diavel V4 video that I recently uploaded. That happened when I had the Streetfighter down at Ducati Dundee for its first annual service, which took place at 2,051 miles. I don't know, to me that's low mileage, but this is a third bike and it's the bike that I use the least amount. Try to look after it, but I don't want to get all prima donna about it and not use it. I see a lot of bikes, there are quite a few in the showroom actually that haven't ever turned a wheel, they've been collected as such. And that's not why I bought this. It's a dream bike to me and I want to use it. I don't want to buy it to pass it on to somebody else. So it's probably more miles than I'd expected to do, 2,051 miles. And since then I've done about 600 more miles on it. 2,051 miles, and that service came in at a whopping £406.77, and most of it, looking at what I've got in front of me, consumables and parts, they were £101.48. The rest of it was labour and VAT, and I don't grudge a penny of it, if I'm being honest. I put money aside for this because I knew potentially these Ducati bills were going to be big every year, and I don't want them sort of catching me at unawares. But I kind of get it's you're paying for premium technicians and tools and knowledge of the product. you wouldn't buy a Ferrari and take it to the local Fiat garage. So that's the way I'm looking at it. And there are people out there who are gonna go, you're ripped off, you could take it somewhere local and get it done there, but not with this bike. I'm afraid I'm not doing that. Yeah, expensive bill, but I expected it. And yeah, nothing untoward, no recall work or anything like that. It's all consumables. And I didn't have anything added to the bike, although by the time you watch this, some new part, well, a new part will have arrived from Italy and been fitted. And something cropped up on this weekend away. Something happened. and it's one of those things that I actually managed to catch on video, luckily enough, and I will put that out as a video short when I hit 1,000 subs, because I would like to be making the money off the back of it and not give it all to Google if possible. So if you haven't already subscribed and you have watched some of my videos, please subscribe, and the sooner we get to 1,000 subscribers, the sooner I can release that clip. And that's about as big a hint as you're getting. For some reason it feels like I'm always fueling this bike up. And I'm not sure, I think this might be partly a bit like people with electric cars get range anxiety. I think that's what I've got with the Ducati, simply because it's not got a fuel gauge and you're forever looking down waiting for the fuel light to come on. And I don't always remember to reset the odometer, so you lose track of how far you've gone, and again it's affected by how you're riding that day, so you may get more or less mileage, but it's always at the back of my mind. And I find that I'm quite often stopping and topping up for no other reason than that I can't look at a fuel gauge and see exactly what I've got left in the tank. It can't be the only bike out there with a strangely shaped fuel tank, so that is one of the big bugbears for me still. It's not a deal breaker. Somebody on here has said to me before it was a deal breaker. I looked at one of these, doesn't have a fuel gauge, so it's off the list. I would never say that, for goodness sake, you know. I have to admit though, there were times on that trip that I was quite envious of Mike and his Z900RS rose tinted spectacles edition, and Ian on the Exxon Valdez GS. They just seem to be having an easier time of it on the bumpier roads than I was on the Ducati. The Ducati suspension is just so firm at slow speeds. Once we're tramping on, it's fine, it's perfect for that on these open roads, but on the miles and miles and miles of single track pass and place type roads that we were on in the wet, it wasn't much fun in the Ducati. It's very crashy, and I find at the end of the day my wrists were bearing the brunt of it. They were quite stiff and sore by the time we got into the accommodation at night. Surprisingly enough though, my butt was okay, and I was expecting it to be quite uncomfortable. I'd done a fair chunk of this trip the previous week on the Svartpillen, and man, I was suffering by the time I got home. But the seat on that's much narrower, so I think that's the issue. The Ducati seat, it's a gel seat and it's quite wide, so unexpectedly more comfortable than the Svartpillen. So I may have to have a look around locally and see if there's somebody that can help me set up the suspension, because I've not got a clue about things like that. So make it slightly more road biased without losing the high speed agility that it has. That's the main thing. It really is. It's set up for fast sweepy roads or track, you know. It's not set up for the west coast of Scotland, that's for sure. But considering how much I was trying to avoid using the Ducati, it coped well. It coped better than I did. I did find, to help things, I was using second gear to pull out of junctions and just to get on the move, rather than the jerky first gear. Something which I'd heard of but never actually experienced myself on a Ducati until we were riding home was heat soak. Never gets that hot in Scotland generally, and where I stay I'm pretty much always on the move. It's not often you're caught in traffic. None of the towns nearby are that big. But unfortunately we rode past an accident on the way home and were diverted quite a considerable amount of miles, and quite often the traffic was left at standstill while people crossed junctions. 24 degrees on the display and sitting in direct sunshine and the engine running at 104 degrees. Yeah, I was slowly cooking. I was suddenly aware of the free heated seat accessory that was below me, and so I totally get, when I hear people complaining about it, I totally get that now. I don't know what it's like to ride one of these in Miami or Spain or somewhere like that. It must be a proper chore, especially if you use the bike to commute. I couldn't do it, that's for sure. Pretty much everything I've mentioned so far has been not issues, more compromises. This is a sports bike. The only real issue that has cropped up a few times now is during gear changes, and I thought at first it might be me being maybe a bit light with the quick shifter, but I'm starting to think no. I've had a few instances where I'm changing gear and it has selected the next gear, but it's like there's a proper jarring change. It's like the brakes go on or the engine locks. It's kind of weird. It's difficult to explain. It's not like when you miss a gear and get a false neutral. This is like a jarring change of gear, like I've just dumped the clutch. That's happened a few times now, and I can't explain why, because you can ride 100 miles and it doesn't happen at all, and the next time you go out and it might happen twice, and it's never in the same gear either, although it does tend to be third gear upwards that it's happened to me. So if it's something you've experienced, let me know. I'd like to know what it is. Is it me, or is it maybe an issue with the quick shifter? Be cool to know though. All in all, I still think it's an awesome bike for what I use it for anyway. It's not a bike I choose to tour on, but you can tour on it. You can tour on pretty much anything you bloody want, so if you're willing to put up with the shortfalls or the pitfalls of a sporty naked to go touring, yeah, it can be done. Whether I'd want to do a multi-day tour on it, I don't know. At times you forget how bloody good that engine is. You're just bimbling along when you forget just how much go you've got on tap, and when you do open it up, you're rewarded with suspension that does work well at that sort of speed. The bike is mind-blowing. I love it. It takes a bit of getting used to when I've been out on the other two bikes. It takes a good few miles till I get used to the extra weight, and you're aware of the inertia when you're slowing down rapidly, but I still love it. I still get a big kick every time I lift the garage door and see it sitting there. I can't believe it's mine. And will I buy another Ducati? At the moment I've got to say yes.